They were put up for sale for being sterile, until a lonely man with 2 children took all 3 home. The air smelled of oil and metal, with a hint of burned food from nearby stalls. Among the crowd, 3 young alien sisters waited in a small cage. Their skin was pale blue, and their eyes were wide and shiny. They shivered quietly, not from the cold, but from fear. The traders walked past them without noticing. "These 3 are sterile," one of them said, a tall man with a gray uniform. "Useless for breeding, only good for labor." He laughed and slapped the cage. "Anyone want to buy 3 worthless girls? Cheap price." The sisters huddled together. They had been through this many times before. Buyers would come, look at them, laugh, and leave. Sometimes people offered money, but it never mattered. They were always returned, always sold again. The older sister, Kira, whispered to the others, "Don't look at them, don't speak, just stay quiet." Far away from the cages, a man walked slowly down the corridor. Ethan Cole was quiet and careful. His eyes moved over the crowd, but he did not speak. He had 2 children with him. Luke, 10 years old, carried a small backpack, and Ben, 7, clutched his father's hand. Ethan's clothes were simple, dusty from travel. He did not look like a trader or a wealthy buyer. He only wanted a helper for his small home colony, a place far from crowded stations. As Ethan passed the cages, something made him stop. The 3 sisters looked at him. Their eyes were full of fear, but also curiosity. They had never seen a human like this, calm and steady. Ethan crouched slightly, keeping his distance, and spoke softly. "Hello," he said. It was not loud, not demanding. It was gentle. The sisters froze. Kira's eyes widened. She whispered, He is speaking to us?" The middle sister, Mila, nodded. The youngest, Lena, hid behind Kira's shoulder. None of them had ever been treated like this. Buyers never spoke gently. They only commanded or laughed. Ethan smiled a little. He had seen enough suffering in the galaxy to recognize it. He saw the way they flinched at every small sound, the way their bodies shook from fear. He felt a strange pull in his chest. He wanted to help even if he could not explain why. He looked around. The traders were busy with other buyers. No one was paying attention to the cage. Ethan turned to Luke and Ben. "I think they need a home," he said quietly. "Not food, not work." "A home?" The children looked at him, unsure what he meant. "Home?" Luke asked. His voice was soft. He had never spoken to aliens before. Ben tugged on his father's sleeve. "But they are not like us," he said. Ethan knelt down to their level. "They are not like us," he agreed. "But maybe that is why they need a family. Sometimes the people who are different need care the most." He stood and walked up to the cage. The trader noticed him finally. "Hey, you, what are you doing here? These girls are for sale. If you want them, you pay full price." Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out credits. He handed them over without arguing. "I'll take all 3, he said. The trader blinked. "All 3, the price is high. Are you crazy? You do not need 3 useless aliens." Ethan shook his head. "I am not buying them for work. I am buying them for home." The trader laughed and waved him off. "You are wasting your money. Take them and leave. I do not care." The sisters watched silently. They did not understand at first. No one had ever bought them and treated them like people. Kira's hands trembled as Ethan opened the cage door. "You can come out," he said gently. "You are safe now." They hesitated. Fear was strong in them, stronger than curiosity. Ethan crouched and smiled, showing that he meant no harm. Kira stepped forward first, testing the ground. Mila followed, keeping a close eye on the human. Lena stayed behind for a moment, then finally joined her sisters. Outside the cage, the sisters felt the air differently. It smelled less like fear here. Ethan motioned to Luke and Ben. "Say hello," he said. The boys stepped forward slowly. "Hi," Luke said. Ben echoed, "Hi." The sisters blinked. No one shouted, no one pushed, no one laughed. It was the first time they had experienced kindness. The trade station was loud, but around Ethan there was a small bubble of calm. The sisters felt it and relaxed slightly. Ethan led them to a small ship that was waiting. It was simple, not flashy. The children ran to the cargo area first, exploring the small space. The sisters stayed close to Ethan, still unsure. On the ship, Ethan offered them water and simple food. The sisters had not eaten well for days. They hesitated at first, then carefully took what was offered. Ethan waited patiently. Luke and Ben sat near them, watching. The children had been shy, but now they smiled. It was a strange sight, 3 alien girls eating quietly with 2 human boys and their father. The ship left the trade station slowly, moving into open space. The sisters looked out the small windows. Stars stretched endlessly and planets glowed far away. Kira whispered, "Is this real? Are we really free?" Ethan heard her but did not answer immediately. He only nodded gently. "Yes," he said, "you are free. For the first time, you do not belong to anyone else." The journey was long. Ethan taught the children and sisters simple rules of life on the ship. They helped with small tasks. They learned to communicate with gestures at first, then slowly using words. Ethan never forced them. He only showed patience, kindness, and quiet strength. At night, they all slept in the small quarters. The sisters were afraid at first. They had never experienced safety. Ethan stayed awake a little, watching them breathe calmly. He thought of the stories he had heard about humans, about aliens, about wars. He thought of the lessons he wanted to teach his children, that life was not about power or wealth, but about care, love, and courage. Luke whispered in the dark, "They are nice. They do not hurt us." Ben nodded. Kira heard him and felt a warmth she had never felt before. It was strange to feel safety, to feel wanted. The sisters huddled together, but no longer from fear. Now it was a quiet comfort. The next morning, Ethan gave them simple names. Kira kept hers. Mila chose Maya for herself, and Lena chose Lena as she felt it suited her. Names were strange, but it gave them a sense of identity. They were not just things or laborers. They were people with names and choices. As days passed, the sisters began to help around the ship, not as slaves, but as part of a family. They cleaned, prepared meals, and learned small tasks. Luke and Ben laughed with them. For the first time, the sisters felt belonging. Fear still lingered, but it was weaker. Safety was stronger. The ship approached Ethan's home colony, a small cluster of houses on a quiet planet. The land was green with rivers and trees. It smelled of soil and rain. The sisters gasped at the beauty. No trade station, no harsh lights, only life and calm. Ethan smiled. "Welcome home," he said. The sisters looked at each other, amazed that they had reached a place where they could stay, where no one would sell or command them. As they stepped onto the planet, Ethan held their hands briefly, showing care. The children ran ahead to explore while the sisters stayed close. Kira whispered, "We are safe, really safe." Ethan nodded, looking at them. He could see that they were still afraid of the world, but he knew time would heal them. Kindness was powerful. Humans were not always strong, but they could change lives in small ways that mattered more than anything else. That night under the stars, the sisters and children slept in the small house. Ethan stayed awake a little longer, thinking. He thought of the trade station, of the cruel words of the traders, and of how simple acts of care had changed everything. For the first time, he felt hope not just for his children, but for the three sisters. He realized that family could be chosen, not given by birth. And so life began quietly. Strangers became a family. Fear began to fade, replaced by trust. The sisters no longer felt like useless things. With Ethan and the children, they had a home, a family, and a future. It was a simple beginning, but for them, it meant everything. The small house on the green planet was quiet in the morning. Sunlight came through the windows and fell on the wooden floor. Ethan Cole was already awake, making breakfast for his two children. Luke and Ben helped where they could, carrying bowls and cups carefully. The three sisters watched quietly from the doorway. They were not sure what to do. Everything was different here from the trade station. The air was clean, the smells were gentle, and there were no shouts or threats. "Good morning," Ethan said softly to them. "You can eat with us if you want." Kira, the oldest sister, hesitated. She had never been invited to a meal before. Mila, the middle sister, looked at the food and then at Ethan and slowly walked forward. Lena stayed close to her sisters. They were learning slowly that trust could be given, but it must be careful. The children smiled at them. Luke said, "Sit here near me." Ben nodded and handed Milo a spoon. It was strange at first. The sisters had never eaten like this, with people who smiled at them and offered kindness. Kira finally sat down and the others followed. They tried the food. It was simple, bread and fruit and water, but it tasted different from anything they had known. It tasted safe. After breakfast, Ethan spoke. "You can rest today or you can help if you want. I will not force you to do anything." The sisters looked at each other. Help. They did not know what that meant. Mila whispered to Kira, "We could wash dishes or sweep." Kira shook her head. "Maybe later. We are learning. We should watch first." Lena nodded silently. She liked watching. Ethan showed the children how to water the small garden outside. Luke took a small watering can and carefully poured water on the plants. Ben followed, spilling a little. The sisters watched from the door, curious. Ethan looked at them and said, "If you want, you can help too." The plants will grow stronger if we all work together. Kira stepped out first. The sun felt warm on her skin. She poured water carefully, trying not to spill. Mila joined, smiling a little. Lena followed, laughing when water dripped on her hand. The first days were slow. The sisters learned how to speak simple words in the human way. Ethan taught them one word at a time. Eat, drink, sleep, help, play. The children practiced with them, sometimes laughing at mistakes, sometimes clapping when they got it right. Slowly, the alien sisters began to feel part of the family. Neighbors in the small colony began to notice Ethan's new companions. Most of them frowned. One neighbor, a tall man named Carl, approached Ethan. "Why did you bring them here?" he asked. "They are sterile, useless." "You are wasting your time and resources." Ethan looked at him calmly. "They are not useless. They are alive. They need care. That is enough reason." Carl shook his head and walked away. The sisters overheard and felt fear. Could humans really accept them as family? Ethan noticed their worry. He sat with them that evening. "Do not listen to people who do not understand," he said gently. "Family is not about who is strong or who can have children. It is about who cares for you." Kira, Mila, and Lena listened. It was strange to hear such words. They had never experienced care without demand. They felt a warmth they could not name. As days passed, the sisters began to help more. They cleaned the small house, picked vegetables from the garden, and helped the children with lessons. Ethan never commanded, he only guided. The children laughed when the sisters made mistakes, but they did not mock them. Slowly, bonds grew. Kira taught the others how to arrange dishes, Mila learned to sweep carefully, and Lena ran small errands outside, exploring the garden. One morning, Ethan took the children and sisters to a small stream nearby. The water was clear and fish swam slowly. Ethan taught them how to catch water safely in cups, how to wash hands, and how to look for small stones. The sisters giggled when fish jumped and splashed water. For the first time, they felt play. The trade station had never allowed fun, only fear. Here, laughter was gentle, safe, and warm. The sisters began to talk more. Kira asked about humans, about why Ethan was different from other buyers. He told simple stories. "Some humans are kind," he said. "Some are not, but we can choose. We choose to care for each other." Mila asked about stars and planets. Ethan showed her how to look at constellations. Lena loved the small animals around the house. She chased a rabbit one morning, laughing loudly, something that had been impossible before. One evening, a storm came. Dark clouds covered the sky, rain poured and lightning flashed. Ethan lit small lamps in the house and moved everyone inside. Luke and Ben were scared. The sisters felt fear too, but it was different now. They stayed calm because Ethan was calm. Kira held Lena close, while Mila helped the children hold lamps and blankets. The storm passed slowly, and the sisters realized they could protect others too. It was a new feeling, courage built from care. Weeks turned into months. The sisters grew stronger. Their bodies seemed healthier than before. They laughed more and worried less. They began to understand simple human ways, how to cook, how to clean, how to help others. The children learned from them too. Luke discovered how to speak alien words, repeating after Kira, while Ben tried to play small games with Lena. It was a small, quiet family, but it was real. One day, Ethan received a message from the trade station. Officials were asking about the three girls. They wanted to know why they were not returned, why they were not being sold again. Ethan read the message to the sisters. Kira looked worried. "Will they come for us?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "If they come, I will speak for you. You have rights here. I will not let anyone harm you." The sisters felt hope. Hope was strange, but it was growing inside them. They had never known it before. They were not objects, not property. They were alive, and they had a protector. Ethan's children laughed with them, played with them, and cared for them. It was not perfect. Fear still lingered at the edges, but trust and warmth were stronger. The colony began to notice changes too. Small things like how the girls laughed with the children, how they helped neighbors quietly. People whispered, some were curious, some disapproved. Ethan did not care about gossip. He only cared about the family inside the small house. Care was stronger than judgment, he thought. One day, a neighbor named Lara approached. She was quiet and kind. "I see they are learning fast," she said. "You have a strange family, but it works." Ethan smiled. "Family is what you make it," he said. Lara nodded, smiling softly, and walked away. The sisters watched her leave. Kira whispered, "Maybe some humans are good too." Mila nodded. Lena laughed quietly, agreeing. As the days passed, the sisters discovered small joys. A warm bed, the taste of bread, the feeling of sunlight on skin, and the sound of children laughing. Each moment was new and each moment was precious. They began to plan small things like gathering flowers, helping cook, or playing games. Ethan encouraged them. "Do what makes you happy," he said. "You are safe here." At night, when the family gathered around the small fire in the living room, the sisters felt something they had never felt: belonging. They were not alone. They were not for sale. They were part of something greater than fear. Luke and Ben held their hands, and Ethan sat quietly, smiling. The quiet house was filled with warmth, laughter, and hope. The sisters whispered to each other in soft voices. Kira said, "We are lucky." Mila nodded. Lena smiled. They felt their hearts opening in ways they never imagined. Life outside the cage, outside the trade station, was not cruel. It could be gentle. It could be safe. It could be family. Ethan watched them sleep that night, thinking of how far they had come. They had been unwanted, marked as sterile, treated as useless. Yet here they were, alive, learning, laughing, and part of a real family. He realized that human strength was not in weapons or power, but in patience, kindness, and love. And so life went on. Each day brought new lessons, small adventures, and quiet victories. The sisters learned to speak, to play, and to care. Ethan's children learned to accept differences, to love without conditions, and to see value in life itself. The small house on the green planet became a place of learning, growth, and hope. The sisters were no longer just three unwanted aliens. They were family. Life on the small green planet had become quiet and steady. Ethan Cole's family moved slowly, learning each day together. The sisters, Kira, Mila, and Lena, had grown stronger and more confident. They walked freely around the house and garden, helping where they could and laughing at small mistakes. Luke and Ben ran with them, playing games in the sunlight. Ethan watched, proud of how quickly trust had grown in such a short time. One morning, Ethan received a signal from the trade authority. It was short, direct, and formal. They wanted to inspect his property, asking why the three girls were not returned and why they were living on his planet. Ethan knew it was coming, but he had not expected them to arrive so soon. He did not panic. Instead, he called the children and sisters to him. "I think some visitors are coming," he said quietly. "Do not be afraid. Stay calm. We will meet them with honesty." The sisters exchanged nervous glances. They had never faced humans who held power like this. At the trade station, people only shouted, punished, or laughed. Here, Ethan's calm voice gave them courage. Kira whispered to Mila, "He will protect us." Lena held Kira's hand and nodded. When the officials arrived, they were dressed in sharp uniforms, their eyes cold and serious. 2 humans and 1 alien led the inspection. They looked around the small house, noting the gardens, the furniture, and the quiet life that filled the home. Ethan greeted them politely. "Welcome," he said. "You are free to look, but please be careful. This is our home." The officials began to question him. "Why are these girls here?" one asked. "They are sterile. They serve no purpose. Why do you keep them?" Ethan looked at them calmly. "They are alive. That is reason enough. They are part of my family. They help, they learn, and they care. That is enough purpose." The officials frowned. They did not understand. One wrote notes while the other spoke in a low voice. They expected defiance, excuses, or fear. Instead, they saw something strange: trust, care, and calm. The sisters stepped forward slightly. Kira spoke first, her voice soft but steady. "We are safe here," she said. "We help and we learn. No one is cruel." The officials blinked. They were not prepared for this. They expected objects, laborers, or excuses. Instead, they heard honesty and confidence. Ethan smiled gently. "They are not property. They are people. They deserve respect." Luke and Ben stood with the sisters. The boys did not hide or whisper. They spoke clearly. "We love them," Luke said. "They are our sisters." Ben nodded. "We play with them. They help us." "They are family." The officials were silent for a moment. The words were simple, but they carried weight. A storm began to gather outside, dark clouds rolling across the sky. Lightning flashed in the distance. The sisters instinctively moved closer to Ethan. He placed a hand on Kira's shoulder. "See, even the storm is nothing. We face it together." The children nodded. They felt strength in family, in trust, and in care. Suddenly, a small accident happened. Lena tripped near the window, almost falling. Mila grabbed her quickly, preventing her from hitting the floor. Luke and Ben helped too. The officials watched as the sisters protected and cared for the children. This small act spoke more than any words could. It showed courage, compassion, and intelligence. The tallest official, a human named Dre, shook his head in disbelief. "I have never seen this before," he said quietly. "We always believed they were useless, dangerous, or broken." Ethan replied calmly, "They were only judged by what others wanted from them." Humans see value differently. We see care, trust, and courage. Dre looked at the sisters. Kira met his gaze without fear. Mila and Lena followed. Their eyes were bright, their expressions honest. He could see that they had changed, grown stronger, and learned to trust. He could not argue with what he saw. The girls were no longer the scared, broken beings that had been sold at the trade station. The alien official shifted uncomfortably. "Your methods are unusual," he said. "But effective." Ethan nodded. "Love and patience are powerful. I do not need weapons or rules to teach it. I only need time and care." The officials continued their inspection. They saw the gardens, the simple rooms, and the peaceful life. They saw laughter and joy. They noticed how the sisters worked alongside the children, helping and learning. Slowly, they began to understand what Ethan meant. Strength was not always measured in power or fear. Sometimes, strength was in patience, kindness, and trust. After a long visit, the officials prepared to leave. Dre looked at Ethan and said, "This is not what we expected. Your actions challenge what we believed about humans. We will need to report this." Ethan nodded. "Report honestly. Tell them what you saw." "We do not need false stories." As the officials left, the sisters exhaled in relief. "They did not take us," Lena whispered. Kira smiled. "They cannot. We are free. We are family." Mila laughed softly, a sound that had not existed in months. The children hugged the sisters. Luke said, "See, humans can be kind too," Ben nodded. "And family is what you make, not what others say." Life continued in the days after the inspection. The sisters grew more confident. They played with the children, helped with chores, and explored the small planet. Ethan taught them how to care for plants, cook simple meals, and tend small animals. Kira learned to read simple words. Mila learned numbers and counting. Lena discovered curiosity in everything, from rocks to stars. Each day, they learned, laughed, and grew stronger. One morning, Kira noticed her hands looked different. Her skin glowed slightly, and her energy felt stronger. Mila and Lena felt the same. They had been sickly and weak when sold, but now, after months of care, they felt healthy. Ethan noticed too. "Your bodies are healing," he said. "Sometimes kindness is stronger than medicine." The sisters smiled, amazed that safety and care could change them so much. The story of Ethan's family began to spread slowly to nearby colonies. Whispers reached other humans and aliens. Some were curious, some disbelieving. "A human keeping sterile aliens as family?" Some said. "It cannot work." But others began to wonder if perhaps care and trust were more important than rules, trade, or profit. The sisters discovered something surprising. Their sterility was not permanent. Their bodies, damaged from stress and neglect at the trade station, had begun to recover. They laughed in amazement. "We are not broken," Kira said. Mila hugged her. Lena jumped in excitement. "We are alive. We can live fully." Ethan smiled quietly, happy that his care had made a real difference. Neighbors in the colony began to change their minds too. Seeing the family work together, help each other, and thrive was hard to ignore. Some still whispered, but others began to accept the sisters as part of the community. Ethan never forced acceptance. He only showed patience, trust, and love. Slowly, humans and aliens alike began to see that value was not in breeding, wealth, or power, but in care, kindness, and courage. One evening, the family gathered outside to watch the sunset. The sky turned pink and gold, and the air was warm. Luke and Ben played tag with the sisters. Ethan watched, thinking of the journey so far. He remembered the trade station, the fear in the sisters' eyes, and the cruelty of buyers. Now here they were safe, happy, and alive. Family had changed everything. Kira whispered to Mila and Lena, "We belong now, really belong." Mila nodded. Lena laughed quietly. The storm of fear from the past was gone, replaced by calm, joy, and hope. Ethan called the children and sisters to sit together. "Look at the stars," he said. "They are big, far, and full of wonder, just like life. We must care for each other, and we will find strength." As night fell, they sat together in silence, feeling the cool wind, listening to the small sounds of the planet. It was peaceful, unlike anything they had known. The sisters realized that trust and care were powerful tools. Love could heal, patience could teach, and family could give strength even to the most broken. And so life went on. The family grew stronger, wiser, and happier. They learned from each other, laughed together, and faced small challenges with courage. Ethan's children learned to love without judgment. The sisters learned to trust and thrive. And the small colony slowly learned a new truth. Humanity could change lives not through rules or force, but through patience, care, and love. Months had passed since Ethan Cole and his children took the three sisters into their home. The small planet that had once been quiet began to feel different. Whispers of the unusual human family spread slowly across nearby systems. Traders, neighbors, and travelers all spoke of Ethan's kindness, of how he had saved the three girls from being sold as useless labor, and how he had treated them as family. Some were curious, some skeptical, but many were inspired. The sisters Kira, Mila, and Lena had changed too. Their bodies were healthier, stronger than ever. Their skin glowed slightly, their eyes were brighter, and their movements were confident. They laughed with the children, helped Ethan in the house, and even explored the small forests and streams nearby. They no longer hid in fear. Fear had been replaced by trust, courage, and joy. One morning, Ethan took the children and sisters to the small town market near the settlement. It was a place where humans and aliens traded simple goods. People stopped to stare at the sisters, whispering to each other. Many had never seen aliens who looked healthy and happy. Some traders shook their heads. "Sterile aliens as family?" one muttered. "This human is wasting his life." Others were quieter, thinking about what they had heard. Perhaps family was more than profit. The sisters noticed the stares. Kira whispered, "Do people not like us?" Ethan shook his head. "They are just learning. Some are curious, some do not understand. Stay close to me and the children. Nothing will harm you." Mila nodded. Lena held Kira's hand and smiled. The children laughed and ran ahead, playing as if no one was watching. Slowly, the sisters joined, laughing too. Courage was easier now because safety surrounded them. As the family walked through the market, they saw other humans quietly helping unwanted aliens from cages and small pens. Traders who once sold labor pets or sterile beings began to leave, uncomfortable with the new attention. Ethan smiled quietly. "See," he said. "Small acts of kindness can change more than you think. People are watching, and some are learning." Back at the house, Ethan began teaching the sisters more about life beyond the small planet. He taught them to read and write, to understand simple math, and to explore the natural world. Kira loved learning words and reading books. Mila enjoyed numbers and calculations, counting stars and measuring distances. Lena loved the creatures and plants around them, asking questions about everything she saw. The children learned too, practicing with the sisters and laughing at small mistakes. One day, a strange ship appeared in orbit above the planet. It was a research vessel from a distant human system. Ethan watched as the crew carefully landed near his house. The sisters were nervous at first. Strangers brought memories of fear and capture. Ethan held their hands gently. "Stay calm," he whispered. "We will meet them together." The crew approached, curious about the human who had taken in three unwanted aliens. One scientist, a woman named Claire, spoke first. "We have heard stories," she said. "We wanted to see if they are true." Ethan nodded. "Everything you hear is true. They are my family. We care for each other." The scientist and her team spent days observing the family. They watched how the sisters laughed with the children, helped in the house, and explored the land. They saw how Ethan taught patience, care, and courage. They noticed the transformation in the sisters' bodies and minds. They were stronger, healthier, and happier than anyone could have imagined. The team whispered to each other, shocked. One evening, the sisters gathered with Ethan and the children near the river. The sunlight reflected on the water. Kira said softly, "Our bodies, we are not broken anymore." Ethan nodded. "You were never broken, you were only hurt and afraid. Kindness can heal many things, sometimes more than medicine." Mila smiled and touched the water gently. Lena laughed as a small fish jumped near her hand. The sisters realized that love and care could truly change life. The research team reported back to their system. They described the human who had taken in three sterile aliens and treated them as family. They spoke of transformation, of courage, and of trust. The report reached humans and aliens across many planets. Some leaders grew nervous. A system built on control and trade of life could not accept the idea that value was measured by care and love instead of profit. Despite the attention, Ethan remained quiet and patient. He focused on daily life, teaching the sisters, caring for the children, and tending the small garden. He knew that true change happened slowly, not through arguments or power, but through small acts of kindness repeated every day. The sisters learned from him, seeing how patience, courage, and love could shape their world. One night, while the family sat outside watching stars, Mila asked, "Will people ever understand us?" Ethan looked at her calmly. "Some will, some will not. We do not need everyone to understand. What matters is that we care for each other. Love and trust are stronger than fear and rules." Kira nodded, taking Ethan's hand gently. Lena leaned against the children, feeling safe. The small family looked at the stars, feeling a quiet joy. As time passed, more humans began to take notice of unwanted aliens in other colonies. Some began rescuing them from markets, inspired by the stories of Ethan and his family. Small communities started questioning old laws, asking why life should be measured by profit or breeding alone. Across many systems, ideas slowly changed. Value was no longer only about usefulness. Compassion, courage, and care began to gain respect. The sisters discovered other truths as well. Their biology, once thought damaged permanently, had changed. Their bodies were now fully healthy. They could reproduce if they wanted, but they also could choose not to. It was their choice. For the first time, they had control over their lives. They laughed with amazement. Lena said, "We are alive and free, really free." Kira nodded. Mila smiled. Ethan watched quietly, proud of how far they had come. One morning, a group of alien leaders visited the colony. They were cautious and formal, curious about the human family. They asked questions about the sisters and how they had been treated. Ethan answered calmly, "We care for each other. That is why they are strong and happy. Kindness heals, patience teaches, and love gives courage." The leaders were silent. They had expected defiance, punishment, or fear. Instead, they saw honesty, joy, and trust. The sisters demonstrated small tasks. They prepared meals, helped with chores, and even played with the children. The leaders noticed their strength, health, and courage. Slowly, some began to understand Ethan's message. One whispered, "Perhaps we have been wrong to judge by fear and usefulness alone." The others nodded quietly. Change was slow, but it had begun. Back at the house, the family continued their quiet life. They celebrated small victories, a new plant growing in the garden, a successful cooking experiment, or a day of laughter without worry. The sisters discovered joy in simple things, running through the fields, listening to birds, or holding the children's hands. Each day brought lessons, growth, and hope. One evening, Ethan took the family to a hill overlooking the colony. The sunset painted the sky with red, orange, and gold. The children ran ahead, laughing. The sisters walked slowly, amazed at the beauty. Ethan smiled. "Look at this world," he said. "Life is full of wonder. We care for each other, and we are stronger together." Kira whispered, "We are family." Mila and Lena nodded. The children hugged them tightly. Together, they watched the sun disappear, feeling peace and joy. As night fell, the family returned home. The sisters and children slept peacefully for the first time in months without fear. Ethan stayed awake a little longer, thinking. He thought of the trade station, of the cruelty they had faced, and of how kindness had changed everything. He realized that the strength of humans was not in power or wealth, but in choosing care, love, and patience when no one else did. The small green planet became a quiet beacon for change. News of Ethan's family spread further, inspiring other humans and aliens to question old rules. Across the galaxy, some began rescuing unwanted beings, treating them as family rather than property. The sisters' story became a symbol of hope, courage, and compassion. And so life continued. Each day brought new lessons, small adventures, and quiet victories. The sisters laughed and learned. The children loved and grew, Ethan guided with patience and wisdom. The galaxy began to see that humans could teach a different kind of strength, one measured not by fear, wealth, or power, but by kindness, courage, and love. Life on the small green planet had settled into a quiet rhythm. Ethan Cole, his two children, Luke and Ben, and the three sisters, Kira, Mila, and Lena, lived each day with small routines, laughter, and care. The house was filled with warmth, and the garden grew strong under their attention. News of their family had spread across many nearby systems, and people whispered of the human who had taken in 3 unwanted aliens and treated them as family. The sisters had fully recovered from the neglect and fear they had endured at the trade station. Their bodies were healthy, their minds were strong, and their hearts were full of courage. They laughed freely, explored the hills and rivers near the house, and played simple games with the children. Each day brought new lessons and joy. For the first time, they understood what it meant to be safe, valued, and loved. One morning, a small human research team arrived on the planet. They had heard about Ethan's family and wanted to observe how the sisters had grown. Ethan welcomed them simply. "You may watch, but please respect our life," he said. The sisters were cautious at first. Memories of the past made them wary of strangers. Ethan held their hands gently. "Stay close, nothing will harm you. We face this together." The sisters nodded, feeling the safety they had learned to trust. The research team watched as the sisters helped the children cook breakfast. Kira carefully measured ingredients, Mila stirred the pot, and Lena set the table. Luke and Ben laughed and played small games while Ethan guided quietly. The researchers whispered among themselves, amazed at the sisters' intelligence, skill, and confidence. They were stronger and healthier than anyone had expected. After breakfast, Ethan led the family to the garden. They tended the plants, watered the vegetables, and observed the small animals nearby. The sisters moved naturally and confidently. They laughed when a small rabbit jumped near Lena, and Mila carefully counted the seedlings as Kira adjusted the irrigation. The children joined in, learning from the sisters and helping in small ways. The research team took notes, seeing that kindness and patience could transform lives. One evening, a storm began to form over the hills. Dark clouds rolled across the sky and lightning flashed in the distance. Ethan called everyone inside. The sisters, Luke and Ben, moved calmly this time. They had learned how to handle fear with courage and care. Kira comforted Lena, while Mila helped the children hold lanterns and blankets. Together, they stayed safe and calm until the storm passed. The research team watched quietly, impressed by the family's strength and trust in each other. As the months went on, more humans and aliens took notice of Ethan's family. Some brought unwanted aliens from other colonies, inspired by the stories of courage, care, and healing. Others questioned the old rules that measured life by usefulness or profit. Slowly, change began across the galaxy. Markets that once sold living beings faced scrutiny. Laws and customs were questioned. People began to see that value was not in power, wealth, or breeding, but in care, compassion, and trust. One day, Kira noticed something surprising. Her body, once weak and fragile, had grown strong and healthy. Mila and Lena noticed the same. They laughed in amazement. "We are truly alive," Kira said. Mila hugged her. Lena danced with joy. Ethan smiled quietly. "Your strength comes from care and love," he said. "Kindness heals more than medicine." The sisters realized that they had been given not only safety, but also life itself. Neighbors in the colony began to accept the sisters fully. Some still whispered, but many watched how the family worked together, helped each other, and laughed in joy. Ethan never forced acceptance. He only showed what life could be like when people cared for one another. Slowly, the colony learned that true strength was not in control or fear, but in patience, love, and courage. One morning, a distant alien leader visited. He was cautious, formal, and curious. He asked Ethan about the sisters and how they had been treated. Ethan replied calmly, "We care for each other. They are not property. They are family. Kindness heals, patience teaches, and love gives courage." The leader watched the sisters as they laughed with the children, helped with chores, and explored the garden. Slowly, he began to understand the message. Even in a society built on rules and control, he saw that trust and care were stronger than fear and orders. The sisters began to teach others in small ways. Kira showed children simple words and reading. Mila taught counting and numbers. Lena taught curiosity and observation, exploring plants, animals, and rocks. The children, Luke and Ben, learned from them too, and the family shared small lessons with neighbors. The community slowly changed, learning that life was more than trade and rules. It was about care, growth, and courage. One evening, Ethan led the family to a hill overlooking the colony. The sunset painted the sky in red, orange, and gold. Luke and Ben ran ahead, laughing. The sisters walked slowly, amazed at the beauty. Ethan smiled. "Look at this world," he said. "Life is full of wonder. We care for each other, and we are stronger together." Kira whispered, "We are family." Mila and Lena nodded. The children hugged them tightly. Together, they watched the sun disappear, feeling peace, joy, and belonging. As night fell, the family returned home. The sisters and children slept peacefully for the first time in months without fear. Ethan stayed awake a little longer, thinking. He thought of the trade station, of the cruelty and fear they had faced, and of how small acts of kindness had transformed everything. He realized that human strength was not in weapons, wealth, or rules, but in choosing love, patience, and courage when no one else did. The small green planet became a quiet symbol for change. News of Ethan's family spread to many systems. Humans and aliens alike began questioning old laws and customs. Some rescued unwanted aliens. Some treated them as family instead of property. Across the galaxy, lives began to change quietly, slowly, as people learned that care and love were more powerful than fear, profit, or control. One morning, the sisters discovered a small problem in the garden. A plant had withered. Lena looked sad, but Kira said, "We can fix it. We care for it and it will grow again." Mila added, "We can learn from mistakes. Care brings life back." The children joined them, watering the plant and gently moving it to sunlight. Slowly, the plant revived. The sisters realized that this simple act reflected everything they had learned. Care, patience, and love could change life in small but powerful ways. Over the years, the family continued to grow quietly. The sisters became more confident, stronger, and wise. The children learned to see value in life itself, not in wealth or rules. Ethan remained the quiet guide, teaching by example. Neighbors began to accept that life could be measured by courage, trust, and kindness. Markets that had sold living beings were closing in many systems. Compassion and patience were slowly winning over fear and control. One night under the stars, the family gathered outside the house. The sky was filled with bright constellations and the air was warm. Kira whispered, "We are truly free. We belong and we are alive." Mila nodded, smiling. Lena laughed quietly. Luke and Ben hugged them, saying, "We are family." Ethan watched quietly, proud of how far they had all come. He realized that life's greatest strength was choosing love when no one else did, and the family had done just that. As the years passed, the story of Ethan and his family inspired many. Humans and aliens began to rescue and care for those marked as useless. Colonies started to see that life was valuable not for wealth or breeding, but for courage, care, and trust. The sisters' story became a symbol of hope, showing that one family's small acts could ripple across the galaxy, changing minds and hearts. And so life continued on the small green planet. Each day brought laughter, learning, and quiet victories. The sisters thrived, the children grew, and Ethan guided with patience and love. The galaxy began to understand that human strength was not in power or wealth, but in choosing to care, to trust, and to love when it mattered most. In the quiet house, filled with warmth, the sisters finally understood something they had never believed possible before. They were wanted, they were valued, and they were part of a real family. Luke and Ben loved them without question. Ethan's care had given them safety, courage, and hope. Together, they faced the future with trust, knowing that kindness could change life, and that family was not just who you were born to, but who chose to care for you. The stars shone above, endless and bright. The small green planet glowed gently under their light. The family sat together, holding hands, feeling joy, peace, and belonging. The universe was vast, but they had found their place within it. It was not power, not wealth, not rules that made life strong. It was love, care, and courage. And in that truth, the family found everything they had ever wanted, and more.